Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Iowa Speedway. It plays host to the season finale for the fifth season of the Dark Horse Racing Series presented by Troy Lee Designs. Coming off the heels of the big race of the season, the Indianapolis 500, tonight everything will be official in terms of the championship. An opportunity here this evening for a couple of drivers to pad their wins on the season. A few drivers looking for their first win of the season, many of them looking for the first win of their career. Getting ready to end off the year with some fireworks at this short track. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Alex Kolonix. And it's going to be 160 laps for these drivers here tonight. Smaller field than we've seen all season long, only 8 drivers in total. But with that being said, what kind of a race can we expect to see here this evening?
Well, I'm expecting a lot of green flag racing conditions. This race is going to be determined purely off of your green flag pit stops and how well you can manage your stints. Did quite a bit of practice, heard from some of the other drivers here today that the tires just do not fall off around this racetrack tonight. They've built a very, very strong setup. These guys are going to be hooked up around this place. And as I'm talking, I believe we've just currently lost a driver due to some connection issues. Hopefully, to get back Yari Brewpacher later on in this event, hopefully he could get himself back into the race.
Yari having a great run last week. He comes into this race 8th in the overall standings. He's got 3 top 5s on the season. He was kind of one of the guys I was looking at to maybe end out the season with a checkered flag. A lot of good finishes in the past couple of weeks, so we'll keep tabs on him as he was scheduled to roll off 8th driver off the grid. Rick Ravon capturing the pole position. He had a pretty exciting Dark Horse 500 weekend, picking up that victory, the 3rd of the season for him in only 5 starts. Of course, the defending champion as well, and just trying to go out there, get checkered flags. He'd love to get another one before the end of the season. Matter of fact, he is the only driver of the 8 scheduled to take the green flag here today that has taken a checkered flag at this racetrack in the past. That was, of course, last season. The other driver that took a checkered flag here back in Season 2, Charles Teed, not in the field here tonight.
Yeah, with a good bunch of big name drivers not in this race tonight, it's going to open the door for some of these guys to maybe get a first win on the season. There's quite a few guys who've been dominating the wins so far this season. Rick Ravon being one of the notable ones, winning last week and winning in a majority of his starts so far this season. He's going to be a tough competitor to try and get past and beat, but if there's ever going to be a week to do it, it's got to be this week.
Craig Forsyth rolling up in the 5th position. He's got 4 wins on the season. He will undoubtedly finish out the year 2nd in the point standings as Matt Wagner, who was behind him 3rd in the standings, not in the field, and Nick DeGroot, the points leader coming into this race, is not in the field as well. Nick DeGroot, with his great run last week and it being a double points event, locked up the championship once the checkered flag waved Indianapolis, so he didn't have to make the start here tonight to secure the championship position. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to talk to him as the championship winner, though. That's the kind of downside with him not being in the field here this evening. But if you look at Rick Ravon and Craig Forsyth, 7 wins between the two of them here this season. Everybody else in the field are looking for the first win, I believe. I'd have to look back real quickly on Peterson, but I'm pretty sure that for every one of them looking for the first win of their career, going all the way back to Season 2.
Yeah, for a good number of these drivers, I mean, they've not had time inside of victory lane for a good amount of time, and they want this season to be the season where they come back to that place or get it for the first time. Not sure if the pace car is going to end this time by. Yes, they are, so we're going to be going green.
Rick Ravon and Eric Peterson, the front row to bring us to green. 160 laps of racing here tonight at Iowa. The season finale is green as Ravon going to lead them into turn number 1. And a big thing that you and I were talking about here before we came on the air is that these drivers here tonight, the ability to be able to hook that inside line, a lot of grip available. So it kind of seems like, especially in the early going, if you're going to make up positions and make passes for position, you're going to have to figure out some way around that outside line right between the 2 lower set of hash marks.
And I think this is going to be a key place to be doing it. It's got to be down there in turns 1 and 2, as that bottom is very, very bumpy, especially off turn 2. And that can give an opportunity for these guys running the higher lane to get a big run, exactly like Rick Ravon just did there, making the pass for the lead once again off of Nunez, who had a fantastic start lap one.
It's Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who we haven't seen since Michigan. Nunez coming into this race, even with the limited number of starts on the year, 10th in the point standings. So securing his spot inside the finishing standings inside of the top 10 as he'll battle with Eric Peterson in the 36. You know, not only is there an opportunity for a number of drivers to be able to get the first win of the season for themselves, but also you look at a few of these guys. You know, Gale Brooks last couple of weeks have not been kind to him, and he was a mainstay up inside of the top 4 or 5 in the points all season long. Eric Peterson, he was up there inside the top 10 in the early going of the season. He kind of hit a bit of a rough streak. These are some drivers that not only could finish out the season with a checkered flag, but at least finish out the season on a high note after having a few weeks of finishing outside of the top 5.
Oh, yeah, for certain. I mean, this is the biggest opportunity you're going to have this year for some of these guys to gain a lot of positions. We're missing a lot of drivers that are pretty high in the point standings. Matt Wagner being a notable one for a couple of these guys. AJ Hobson being another notable one. Jim Brooks. All those guys inside the top 10 in the point standings left themselves vulnerable this weekend to lose some points positions on that championship standings.
Yeah, it was interesting looking at the 2 previous races we've had here at Iowa. 2 entirely different races in terms of lead changes, in terms of cautions, in terms of, you know, the domination out there. Back in season 2, we ended up having, I believe, a good dozen drivers lead laps, and about half of those led more than 10 laps apiece. The eventual winner, Charles Teed, led 21 laps of those, and we had 11 cautions fly. But last year, we ended up only having 1 caution in the race, and Rick Ravon absolutely dominated that race, leading 125 of the 150 laps. Right now, looks like he's kind of picking up where he left off last season, as he, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, they've been jostling back and forth of who's going to lead which lap. But right now, Rick Ravon looking very much like he could be a back-to-back winner here at Iowa.
Yeah, and he seems to have a pretty solid control of this racetrack, as he seems to be able to pick whatever line he really needs to be in to maintain or regain a position if he gets challenged for it. But Nunez has been running a pretty wheel around this racetrack, been able to keep up with him while some of the drivers behind have been struggling.
Riding on board with Craig Forsyth. He has back-to-back finishes inside the top 6 here at Iowa. 6th place back in last year and back in season 3, or make that season 2. No, it was season 3. He finished 3rd place inside of the podium, right now running P3, looking ahead at this battle between Ravon and Nunez.
And in the case of Craig Forsyth, I mean, he's pretty solidly locked up in this 2nd position just by making the start of this race, so he doesn't really have to watch out too much. I mean, if he has a poor enough race, there is a possibility that Jeff Hysong, who's also in this event, if he finishes high enough ahead of Forsyth, he could nab himself a 2nd place championship points position at the end of the season. But I think with how well Craig Forsyth's been this season, it's going to be a challenge.
There's the aforementioned Jeff Hysong. Hysong with a great run last week in the Indy 500, brought it home in the 4th position, up inside of the top 5. Matter of fact, he's got some pretty good numbers here at Iowa as well. A 10th and a 4th position, I believe it is. I'll double check on that. Nope, it was a 3rd place actually last season inside of the podium.
So he's definitely got some experience around here, but the one thing that I've been seeing that's been surprising me almost is the fact that this has almost turned into a bit of a pack race. I mean, these top 6 drivers are all in a line no less than 1 to 2 car lengths off of each other each this deep into the run. Seems to be that the ability to pick and choose whatever lane you need to be in and be able to recover that down the straightaways, allowing these guys to stay packed up on top of each other.
And I'll tell you, I'm not all that surprised about that, because when I watched these guys in practice, even though we only had 7 drivers out there practicing, the lap times were within 2.5 tenths of each other. as far as fastest laps. So all these guys seem to be on a pretty equal footing in terms of speed, which I think is going to make pit road very much so an important factor into the outcome of this race, because we end up having a number of races this season with long green flag runs, and we talk about the execution on pit road. We've seen pit road in races, especially early on in the season, play a part into the eventual winner. And you were talking about some of the pitfalls of this particular pit road that drivers are going to have to deal with.
Yeah, I think one of the big ones watching these guys run around the racetrack is going to be the pit road entry. A lot of these guys are running very, very low on the racetrack, and unlike in real IndyCar where these guys will pull in on the back straightaway and run the apron, on iRacing you want to try and maximize your pit road entry, so you want to try and stay out on the racetrack to maximize your braking and maximize your corner speed on entry to be able to get down there. But if you have guys right on top of you, that's going to be difficult for them to try and negotiate. Then at the same time, coming off pit road is so tricky since you don't have any of the downforce to hold the race car down. Very, very easy to slip the tires and spin out.
Saw Rick Ravon run a little higher than most of the field there through 3 and 4. Might be trying to put some rubber down up there. Trying to diamond the corner, get that good exit off of turn 2 and carry that speed down the straightaway. Now, we've already documented the championship is locked up. Really, that battle for second in points could be going on, but everybody else in the field pretty much knows where they're going to end out the season. So with that being said, with everything pretty much in place and the only thing left on the line, a final checkered flag here in Season 5, how does that change up strategy for these drivers when we eventually get to, because it looks like, at least for the time being, we're not going to see a yellow flag anytime soon. So when we get to that round of green flag pit stops, is there any advantage to short pitting? Is there any advantage to stretching it longer than others? I mean, do we see some pit strategy come into play, or for the most part, especially here on the first round, does everybody kind of just do a little monkey see, monkey do?
Well, I think at least on the first round, what we were told is that the way these race cars were set up is that on the initial green flag, they're going to have a slightly smaller fuel load. So then this stint is going to be a little bit shorter than the rest of the race will be in terms of the fuel loads. But what that opens the door for some of these guys to do is be able to race as hard as you can now before they go on that longer stint. The fuel numbers really spread out, because I think the key to this race is going to be you want to try and stay out as long as you can, because these tires fall off so little that there's no real advantage to coming in early.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez, of course, remember back earlier on in the season, I believe it was at Las Vegas, he was leading that race, ended up hitting some area of turn 1 that sent his car around, took him out of the running for that checkered flag. A heartbreak for him. Mentioned we haven't seen it for the last couple of weeks, but just looking back at his statistics here this season, this would be a track that would fit right in his wheelhouse, because you look at similar tracks like Richmond and Gateway, he has finishes up inside of the top 4 in both of those races.
And it seems to have a pretty decent grip on these a lot tighter racetracks where the corners are much more important, and he's shown it here again today, leading pretty dominantly over Ravon, who had a strong control early but can't seem to get back to Nunez.
Yeah, all of a sudden now the battle for second place might be heating up. Notice Forsyth closing in momentarily on Ravon in that second position. He's actually bringing Eric Peterson along with him, so we could have a 3-man fight for the runner-up spot as Peterson drives to the inside. Not quite able to make the pass there on Craig Forsyth. Now, I'm assuming that a big reason for that might have been the tire heat building up and getting tight down on the inside of the racetrack. But you talked about the tightness of the corners here, too. I mean, kind of have to have that sweeping entry to be able to make sure that you can then swing it out off the exit as well, kind of arc it into the corner. You drive it in shallow, you run the risk that that car is going to push up when you're trying to pass for position.
Yeah, the difficult thing is going to be, as Ravon's starting to pass for the lead, he got a good run through 3 and 4, is that, it's going to be tight on these corner exits if you're making a pass, because already running the racing line, these guys are driving right out to the wall, especially off turn 4. It's very, very difficult to stay below somebody. But where you get the runs is out of turn 2, so that's where you would want to go to the inside, is into 3. So it's so difficult to make a move around here if you can't get by them fast enough.
was a very clean pass there by Rick Ravon, but the way he did it, I don't know, an open wheel DW12 machine, would that have been considered a slide job here at Iowa? Because it certainly looked like one.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have the opportunity to try and do something like that because they have to take a wider entry to be able to maximize their exit speed and maximize their lap time. So doing that right there is an easy way to gain a position and possibly just dump some dirty air on the driver he's passing.
Well, we told you we'd update you on the connection issues with Yari Brewpacher. He has returned into the server. He is on the racetrack right now, running 18 laps down in that 8th position. It'd be interesting to see if we end up getting a caution flag at some point in this race, if he would end up getting most of those laps back, or if he's going to have to try and get them back the hard way. I guess the good news for him is the fact that it's only an 8-car field, so he's got a guaranteed finish no lower than 8th place, which will be some very important points for him to solidify himself inside the top 10 in this season's standings.
Well, I'm hearing over the radio that Nunez is planning to come into the pit lane. The earliest driver I've heard do it. Haven't seen anybody else take the pit lane yet. He's actually entering on the back straightaway. Not sure if I did miss a rule about that or not, but I would think you would want to try and stay out on the racetrack as long as you can.
There he is, coming down to the attention of his crew. Joseph Morales going to come down there with him. So a driver that was up at the front and a driver that was running towards the tail, both coming down this time. We'll see if the gauntlet's been thrown down now, if some of our other race leaders will be electing to come down pit road at some point in time. Going back to the Yari Brewpacher situation, there's actually a battle going on between him and Rick Ravon in the point stands, as Ravon's in this lap. He's in that apron entry there through turn number 3, but 3-point separation between Yari Brewpacher over Rick Ravon for 8th in the point standings, and I think eventually that's going to turn into a battle for 6th in the standings with Jim Brooks and AJ Hobson not in the field here tonight. Forsyth's in this lap.
And what I am noticing is my concerns about the pit road entry seems to have been quelled, may have been discussed over the drivers' meeting that we were not allowed to attend to for drivers, is that they seem to be told that you need to enter through the back straightaway. So my concerns about the pit road entry are no longer a concern. They just have to manage their pit road entrance exit, which I've not seen anybody have too many difficulties as, ooh, I almost saw Ravon spin around there on pit exit.
And that was the thing you were talking about, was coming off of pit road. That pit road exit would be something drivers would have to be aware of. That loose sensation there, the lower banking, the cooler, fresher tires, is Ravon right now in 5th, should cycle around, if not to the front, maybe behind Craig Forsyth in the 27. Looks like Forsyth might end up being the race leader when all is said and done here, and he came to pit road the lap after Rick Ravon. That's something interesting about, when these drivers being told they have to utilize the apron heading into turn 3, come around to the pit road entry off of turn 4. There's opportunity to make up and lose time even right there in relation to how you're going to cycle around.
Yeah, now luckily, unlike turns 1 and 2, it seems the apron in 3 and 4 is a lot smoother, so I don't believe we're going to be seeing any very bad spins coming onto pit road. But yeah, you're right. I mean, them having to take the apron really puts a lot of strain on the tires and really slows down these guys a lot trying to manage their corners. Completely different from the racetrack where you're running around there pretty much full throttle the whole time trying to make up lap time. Yeah, it completely changes the dynamic of pit road.
So something I've observed here, and I don't know if the pit road entry, how hard these drivers attack that, if that comes into play, but a couple of drivers, at least momentarily, have been favored with coming to pit road later than others. Craig Forsyth, as mentioned, came to pit lane 3 laps later than Nunez and 1 lap later than Rick Ravon. He now cycles around as your new race leader. And for a moment there, Gil Brooks had cycled around to 3rd place, has now dropped back to 5th. But those are 2 drivers that were some of the last ones to hit pit lane. And once everybody came back out on the racetrack and were up to speed, they were both sitting in positions higher than when the pit stops began.
Yeah, and I think one of the factors of that is to do with how much traffic you have. You may be coming onto pit road in turn 3 on the apron, which may seem completely out of the way, but you also have to remember that when you're in the middle of this pack racing with these people, you're going to be running a lot faster down that back straightaway thanks to the draft. And so you're going onto that apron a lot faster, and you might not be prepared for how much you have to slow down going onto the apron, or maybe slowing down enough will upset the car trying to get to the speed so you don't slide up back onto the racetrack. And that could be another advantage of coming in later, is you don't have to deal with that traffic.
Battle going on for second. These two haven't been able to get away from each other. Nunez and Rayvon taking place nearly a second and a half behind race leader Craig Forsyth. I think Forsyth might be trying to shake the moniker I gave him, Mr. Mile and a Half. 4 wins on the season, but they've come at Chicagoland, Kentucky, Kansas, and Las Vegas, all mile-and-a-half racetracks. Trying to prove he can get it done at the short tracks as well, and looking for what would be his season-leading 5th win on the year. Obviously not going to be able to take home the championship, but kind of makes it a little less bittersweet when you're able to get one more checkered flag before season's end, right?
You'd get another checkered flag and secure by far the most wins on the season. I mean, Rick Rayvon came in late to the season, but he's only 1 win away from tying Craig Forsyth on the season. And I think if Craig Forsyth wants to say anything about the year he's had so far, is that he had the most wins on the season. So he's got to make sure he at least beats Rick Rayvon in that department.
Crossover after crossover going on here between Nunez and Rayvon. And unlike the bigger speedways and the mile-and-a-halves, and of course last week as we saw in the Indy 500, this back and forth usually allows second, third, or whoever's trying to chase down somebody for position to be able to keep the momentum going, keep the speed going, and reel in somebody. Right now, this battling back and forth is hurting Nunez and Rayvon more than helping them, because every time that they get side by side and kind of stifle each other's run with the side draft, it's allowing Forsyth to continue to open up his gap. It's now 1.7 seconds back to them.
No, the last lap they were slightly faster running together. The problem is every time they try and make a pass, they end up slowing down each other. And that just means that Craig Forsyth, who doesn't have to deal with any traffic whatsoever out front in the lead, is just able to run the fastest corners you could run without having to worry about somebody diving to his inside.
Big run there as we're on board with Rick Rayvon back to the inside on Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Behind them, possible battle brewing for the 4th position, Eric Peterson and Gale Brooks. Now, Gale Brooks has 1 lap fresher tires than Eric Peterson, but you were talking about the fact that it just doesn't seem like even a lap or 2 fresher tires gives you that much of an advantage here. Is that because of the nighttime conditions here at Iowa? The grip is basically equal for everybody, and so in terms of pit road strategy, fresher tires aren't going to make you up nearly as much time as you would expect.
Yeah, I think it's most definitely the night conditions that we have here today, because you figure one of the biggest problems that tire makers have to deal with these high downforce cars is the amount of load that's put on the tire and how much heat that creates. I mean, they're carrying so much speed through the center of these corners. I'm watching Craig Forsyth. He's running at lowest 188 miles per hour through turns 3 and 4. That's a lot to put on a tire around such a tight racetrack. But when the racetrack itself isn't even that hot, it actually helps cool the tire down, meaning you could just be that much more aggressive with it.
Craig Forsyth right now just kind of out for a Sunday drive, hitting his marks. Nearly 2 seconds back to Rick Rayvon, who still has his hands full with Luis Gonzalez Nunez. So Craig Forsyth, that pit road strategy to come down pit lane just a lap or 2 after the rest of his competition, it has certainly paid dividends. And it's interesting, too, because Craig Forsyth, this is first season in a long time that he has run full-time. He ran part-time back in Season 3. He ran part-time a couple of races last season. But this season running full-time, and we've kind of seen the evolution of Craig Forsyth, if you will. A couple of races in the early portion of the season, pit road was an area where he really struggled. I'm trying to remember which track. I believe it might have been Las Vegas. He spun coming off of pit lane after dominating that race and ended up throwing away that victory. Now we're seeing later on here in the season, he's been the guy that has really been able to execute on pit road and work it to his benefit.
Yeah, and that's just a matter of practice, practice, practice. Once you have a lot of these races, especially later on in the season, where we see often with a lot of these league series, is that the entries start to go down as people don't really like want to contend for the championship no longer. These guys have a lot more opportunities to deal with these long green flag runs, to manage their fuel, to manage their pit road entries and exits. And I'm sure he's got plenty of that this season, as we've seen a good bit of long green flag runs and magnificent pit strategies.
Now, for people that are wondering that regularly tune into the Dark Horse Racing series of why we're at Iowa for the season finale, this was originally supposed to be run around the midway portion of the season, but it ended up getting postponed, and so instead of pushing all the races back a week, it was just moved to the end of the season after the Indianapolis 500, and therefore it's going to close out the year here this evening. Greg Forsythe right now en route, as we've still got a long ways to go, but I'm just going to throw it out there with how things look at the moment. Looks like he's en route to his 5th win on the season, but we're not even to the halfway point of this race, and something that we were also told pre-race was these drivers had to come down pit road maybe a little sooner than they would have originally expected due to the fact that they had a lower fuel load for the first run. Now they're going to be able to go a little bit further here on this run, and with that being said, it's looking like they would only have to make one more pit stop between now and the checkered flag, so money stop could be coming up anywhere, and I would say maybe the next 25 to 30 laps.
Oh yeah, it really could be the money stop, but also the question that I'm wondering is, are they really going to make it to the end? Because, I mean, it's going to be close. I know they're going to have a good bit extra fuel, but how much fuel is going to make the difference? Because this first stint was only 44, 45 laps. And if we say give them an extra 10 or so laps, they're only going to make it to around lap 100. That's still 60 laps away from the end of the race.
And an interesting point that you brought up earlier on was where we ended up having about 5-6 drivers throw a blanket over them, all running in the draft together. Now as the field is spread out, there's going to be a lot more fuel consumption running in clean air and not having the benefit of said draft with the field as spread out as it is.
Yeah, especially for even the leader of Craig Forsythe here. He's running full throttle without question. This car has fallen off no less than 1/10 per lap from the start of the run. So he's been full throttle, burning as much fuel as you could humanly burn in a race car. And so his fuel window is not going to fluctuate very much. Once we see him come in, that's probably going to be the length of his stint.
Eric Peterson qualified in this race on the outside of the front row. He has been a qualifying machine here this season. He's had 5 starts up inside, not including tonight, 5 starts up inside of the podium, including a pole position at Richmond. The problem is he's just not been able to follow up those good starting positions with good finishing positions. Only 2 finishes up inside of the top 5, and that's why he comes into this race with a shot of finishing out the season inside the top 10 in points, but coming into this race 12th in the overall standings. And I've been looking at his lap times in relation to the drivers up ahead of him. He is running maybe about 3 to 4 hundredths, maybe even a good half a tenth off of the race leaders, but I almost wonder if that could be by design, maybe backing up the pace a little bit, trying to save a little bit more fuel, stretch it a little bit further than the rest of these other drivers who right now, Forsythe and Rayvon, don't look like they are in any way in fuel save mode. Speaking of fuel save mode, Luis Gonzalez is not in fuel save mode. He just came to pit lane for what looks like a regularly scheduled stop. So does this mean the fuel window is open to make it the rest of the way, or is he planning on a 2-stopper?
I think my question about whether or not these guys are going to be able to make it to the end may have possibly been answered here by Nunez. He may not be confident that they'll be able to make it on just one more pit stop. So rather than doing that, he's going to run 3 shorter stints with a lighter race car, meaning it's going to, on average, be faster running around the racetrack with a lighter fuel load. That could be a strategy that may end up winning him the race.
And why not do something like that, right? I mean, as mentioned, championships locked up, so You're doing everything and anything you can strategy-wise to end out the season in victory lane, so roll the dice, be bold, do an unorthodox strategy that maybe other drivers might not be ready for. That's Joseph Morales coming down pit lane here. Now, these drivers, for the most part, on average, went to about lap 45 before they began that first round of green flag pit stops, and we are now approaching about the lap 45 mark on this run for these drivers.
Well, I just heard over the radio Rick Ravon say that he was going to be coming in, so maybe the extra fuel made little to no difference as these guys are coming in at round about the same time as they were, which would pretty much guarantee that there's no way they could make it to the end on fuel on one more stop.
Absolutely. Right now, looks like these drivers would be anywhere around 25 laps short, maybe 23 laps short at the max, depending on when they come to pit lane here. So, yeah, definitely know where they can make it. There you see Forsyth pulling low to the apron of turn number 3. He's coming in this time.
Yeah, he's just capitalizing on everybody else coming in a little bit before him. Guile Brooks looking to go a little bit longer than everybody else to try and see if he could jump. He did make up a good bit of track position and lap time last time he tried this strategy. Seems to just be that coming in a little bit later seems to give you an odd bit of an advantage. Could be a matter of how much fuel's in the race car or just a matter of not having to deal with any traffic.
This has been a career year for Gale Brooks. 5 top 5s and 7 top 10s this season. 5th in the overall standings. Granted, last week at Indianapolis not going the way he wanted as he finished out of the race in the 21st position. But this is a driver that 1 season ago was in the latter half of the top 10. Really has stepped it up this season. Been very consistent, up inside the top 10 week after week. And led a number of laps here this season as well. Right now, running in around the 4th to 5th position, coming down pit road this time from the race lead. So looking to close out what's been a tremendous year for the driver of the 71.
And talking about a bit of strategies there with Guile staying out a little bit longer than everybody else. Nunez came in a little bit early, may possibly have loaded it a little bit lighter, and did jump Rick Ravon. Now he's getting past now, but these two drivers are a little bit closer to the lead than they were prior. So that strategy call did actually help out just a little bit. Maybe that might be the call that later on in the race will determine who wins.
Right now, the gap about 1.5 seconds from Forsyth back to Ravon. Ravon, again, has his hands full with Luis Gonzalez Nunez. It's interesting because that last time by, Ravon was a tick quicker than Craig Forsyth, but it's difficult to focus out the windshield in terms of lap times when you've got the 14 breathing down your neck trying to get that runner-up spot. So trying to have to split priorities here is Rick.
Though they are running faster than the leader the way they stand right now, that could be if they just don't start battling each other and they just stay in line and run laps, they could slowly get close enough to Forsyth to catch onto his draft and really start catching him.
Of course, this evening when the checkered flag waves, we're going to be talking with our top 3 finishes, including the race winner. But I have been told, despite him not starting the race here tonight, we are actually going to get to talk with the champion on the season, Nick DeGroot, as well. So stay tuned for that as we're waiting to see who's going to get the final checkered flag of the season. No surprise, the 2 drivers, as mentioned, that have wins this season, 7 between the 2 of them, Forsyth and Rick Ravon, are running up at the front in 1st and 2nd. But, talking about Nunez there, keeping up with Ravon, running lap times similar, if not faster, than Craig Forsyth. This seems to be the guy that if anyone's going to throw a spanner into the works of denying Forsyth his 5th win or Ravon his 4th win on the season, it might be this 14 car. So knowing there's one more pit stop coming up, if you're Nunez, what are you looking at here? Are you looking to short pit as soon as that fuel window opens? Do you want to stretch it as long as possible and take on as little fuel as you possibly can? Maybe even think about taking no tires on this final pit stop of the race.
No tires would be a bit of a gamble call, especially with the fact that when you come down the pit lane, they really cool them down and make them very, very sketchy once you try and come off the pit lane. But it's a massive call because it allows you to have a much shorter pit stop, especially if these guys are going to likely be short fueling it to the finish. I'm not sure whether or not they're going to run out this stint all the way as we're on lap 103 going on to 104. They only have, for most of the field, just over 10 laps on their stint. They could go well into lap 130, but that would only leave them with a short 30-lap stint at the end, and that might not be the winning strategy. You might want to split that up a little more evenly.
It's interesting. I love the cockpit views, looking in at what the driver sees, observing the panel on the steering wheel. We've seen a couple of times while riding on board with Rick Ravon that he likes running in 6th gear, the draft gear, but riding on board momentarily there with Nunez, he is in 5th gear. So at a track like Iowa, what would those two particular gears gain you or lose you in respect to those two drivers?
I mean, in the case of Ravon, I think primarily him just running in 6th gear might just be a way to save a little bit of fuel, as 5th gear is definitely the faster gears. I haven't seen them tick it up yet, as they've been very quickly catching the leader here, but in the case of Nunez, him kicking it up into 6th gear would be purely just to make a pass, as even though he does have the flashing lights on his dashboard in that 5th gear towards the end of the straightaway, it's still faster as he doesn't top out on mile per hour.
Talked about that gap closing up. It is now down to about 1.1 seconds. So in the span of the last 10 laps or so, they have chipped away nearly an entire half second off of Craig Forsyth's lead, and Rick Ravon's just about to break into the sub 1 second interval between himself and the 27. So Craig Forsyth, who for the time being has been able to enjoy the view, might want to keep one eye on that rearview mirror. Ravon and that blue and white #1 machine going to start looming larger and larger, as looks like Jari Brewpacher turned some laps here after getting into the server, but likelihood of a caution coming out slim to none with 50 laps to go. He's brought his car back to the garage area. He'll finish 8th in the season finale, but that should be good enough to secure him a top 10 finishing position in the season standings. Still 1 second from Forsyth back to Ravon, as they ran just about identical lap times that time by.
Yeah, notice the last couple laps, the pace has very, very slowly started to teeter off. Nunez especially seeming to really, really struggle at the moment. Remember, he came in about 10 laps earlier than these other drivers. He could be suffering from a slight bit of aero push and tire wear combination together at this instant, as I did notice that later on in the stints towards the very end, their lap times teetered off by about a full 1/10 of a second compared to the beginning of the run, and that's pretty consistently been where Nunez has been compared to the leaders.
Right now, Nunez running about a full second off of Rick Ravon for that second spot. I get the feeling, too, he's going to be one of the first drivers we see on pit road when we get to that third and final green flag pit stop of the evening. Mentioned that last year, these drivers only had the caution fly once. They may end up beating that record and not having the yellow flag fly at all here tonight. As that time by, advantage Rick Ravon, but only by 2 1,000ths over Craig Forsyth. I'm wondering just how far back does Ravon have to be before he would maybe start picking up a little bit of slipstream off that 27, helping him to be able to get big toes, big runs down these straightaways?
I mean, for the really, really big runs, you got to be at least within 5 to 6 tenths of the driver ahead, especially at this racetrack. Some other tracks that are a lot faster on speed, you look at Indy, you look at Las Vegas, Kansas, Chicagoland, those racetracks where Rick Ravon is about 8 tenths of a second would be the drafting spot. But here at Iowa, where it's a slight bit slower, the gaps are a lot bigger from second to second. And so Ravon needs to be a little bit closer to really hook onto that draft, but he might be getting a slight sniff of it at this point.
And it's going to take a couple of laps here, quite a number of laps before this would come into play, but it is worth noting that only about 2.5, maybe even just 2 seconds ahead of Craig Forsyth is the driver running last car on the lead lap, Joseph Morales. So if Ravon's not able to reel in Forsyth here in the next 15 to 16 laps when these drivers would have to think about making their final pit stop, and Forsyth reels in Morales. He's going to have to start dealing with that aero tightness in traffic, and that could be just the break Rayvon's looking for.
Oh yeah, because I mean, remember these guys have been so even on lap time throughout the race that the gains have mostly been on and off pit road, not really on the racetrack. I mean, you look at Guile Brooks, who was sitting there in what is now the third position, as Nunez has now just come into the pit lane. I'm seeing on the scoreboard, Nunez taking the call, lap 122. That gives him just under 40 laps to the finish.
The window is open for these drivers to be able to make it the rest of the way, and no surprise, Nunez the first one onto pit road. He's been the first one onto pit road pretty much the entire night on these green flag pit stop cycles, and little by little, Rick Rayvon continues to close up the gap. It's now 0.7 of a second. 2 out of the last 3 laps, it's almost been identical lap times, but just the lap prior, 3/100ths difference advantage to the one car.
Yeah, what I'm interested to see is how these pit stops are going to work out, because we've seen Forsyth take it the longest out on the racetrack, but we're now starting to reach the point as with pace falling off. Forsyth takes the maneuver to come into the pit lane early. He comes in after what was only a 33 lap stint on these tires. He's going to have a slight longer way to go, but should be able to very, very comfortably make it to the end. Rayvon's going to have to react, stays out an extra lap on top of it, so he's taking it 2 laps difference.
See how far Rick Rayvon is going to stretch it. He could go right now, calculated another 6 to 8 laps before he absolutely would have to come to pit lane to take on fuel. We'll see what the case is going to be here, especially with the fact that he was running lap times faster than Craig Forsyth. His pace wouldn't be that terrible right now and might even out by towards the end of this race. But on the flip side, Craig Forsyth coming down pit road, taking on some fresh Firestones. He's going to be having some pretty good outlaps.
I'm sorry to interrupt for a quick second there. I saw Forsyth completely sideways on the pit exit. He nearly spun out, stamped the brakes, and straightened it, but that's going to really damage the tires.
Damage the tires and might lose him a little bit of time on the racetrack as well. So we'll see when things cycle out how costly that's going to be for the driver of the 27, Joseph Morales, completing his final pit stop of the day. And I've said it, that we are more than likely not going to see a caution, but imagine if a caution came out right now, because with this being a short track, you come down pit lane under green flag conditions, you lose not 1 but 2 laps on pit road. Right now, Forsyth, Nunez, they are -2 to the race leader. Would really change the landscape of this race. Take 2 of our front runners for the entirety of the evening almost out of the picture, with it being less than 30 laps to go now.
Yeah, and something I've been thinking about as we've gone through this pit cycle is that both Forsyth and Nunez have pretty much had to have a nearly full amount of time on pit road, as they've had to take only very slightly under a full tank of fuel. While that will be a slight bit faster, typically you're able to change tires in an IndyCar a lot faster than the car gets fueled up, and so you're just waiting a little bit on fuel. Rayvon is staying out almost all the way to the end of the stint, which means when he comes into the pit lane, he's going to have significantly less fuel to put into the car and may have a significantly faster pit stop time, as he's taking it to the pit lane now.
Yeah, looking at the lap times between himself and Forsyth, Forsyth's running anywhere from a 10th to a 10th and a half quicker than Rick Rayvon, with Forsyth on those fresher tires. So for Rayvon, I think it was a case of trying to figure out how many laps he would need left in this race to be able to get up there and eventually get the race lead race win away from Craig Forsyth. Because it seemed like with the number of laps he stayed out, as opposed to how many laps on fresher tires Craig Forsyth was able to turn, Forsyth should cycle back to the race lead. The question is, what will the interval be between himself and Rick?
Well, I can't understate enough how much time he lost when he got sideways off the pit lane trying to exit. Rayvon is coming off the pit lane now, and Forsyth is only coming through turns 1 and 2 at the moment. I think Rayvon may have just taken the lead.
I think you're right. Yeah, definitely has the advantage over Forsyth. According to telemetry, 3.5 seconds from Rayvon back to Forsyth. Now, they are not battling for the race lead right now. We're looking at the current race leader, Gale Brooks, who's got maybe another lap or two before he'll have to come down for his final pit stop of the day. Jeff Heisong had stayed out, but he now is on pit road for his final pit stop of the evening. And that would then, after the 71 dives onto pit lane, turn the race lead over here to Rick Rayvon. So I think you hit the nail right on the head. That slight slip-up coming off of pit lane is going to more than likely be the costly error for Craig Forsyth in not winning this race here tonight. But Rick Rayvon's not out of the woods yet either. There's still going to be 20 laps to go. A mistake could still take place out there on the racetrack. Granted, he hasn't put a wheel wrong yet, but you never know with these type of races, especially season finales, when there's really nothing on the line in terms of the championship. It's just down to who wants that checkered flag more.
Yeah, and watching where these drivers came on and off pit road, the difference on entry to exit to pit road between Rayvon and Forsyth was around about 3 seconds between them total, but that was just purely on entry and exit. That's without counting when Forsyth spun it around. So not only was he already a slight bit slower on pit road as a whole, he did lose it on exit as well and cost himself a lot of momentum. That's why Rick Rayvon's in the lead with such a large gap at the moment.
It's also something beneficial for Rick Rayvon. You see just behind him, Joseph Morales in the 60 got put a lap down. So before Forsyth could even get up here and think about battling Rick Rayvon for this win, he would have to deal with the dirty air running behind the 60, trying to get up to him and pass him before even getting up there into the same zip code as the one car, who's going to hit the line. And we are at 19, now 18 laps to go. The gap back to Forsyth, less than 2 seconds. But we saw just how painstakingly long it took for Rick Rayvon to cut down what was, I think, a second and a half down to 1 second on then race leader Craig Forsyth. With less than 20 to go, Craig Forsyth needs a miracle.
Well, he's trying to make his own magic right now, as he's been running faster than Rayvon by 1 to 2 tenths per lap. It's actually been pretty astonishing. It almost seems like Rick Rayvon didn't take tires, as he's been running in the 16.8s to almost 16.9s per lap, and it's costing him so much lap time.
I was wondering about that, and I'll ask you, looking at the time that they spent in their pit stall, 8 seconds for Craig Forsyth, so that says to me definitely changed tires, but only 5 seconds for Rick Rayvon. Does that scream to you fuel only?
It may possibly be. I'm just surprised, as typically the tires do not take that long in IndyCar to change. I was surprised that you may not even take tires. I would understand if maybe it was a 2 or 3 second long pit stop on fuel, but 5 seconds sounds like enough time to put tires on and not lose that much. But maybe Rayvon just had a different opinion. He is a champion after all.
Absolutely, a former winner at this racetrack as well last season, defending winner. 13 laps to go. And that last time by, holy cow, 0.3 of a second faster Craig Forsyth over Rick Rayvon. He has consistently been at least a tenth faster each lap, and compare that to when Rayvon was trying to run down Forsyth, he was only gaining hundreds. So Rick Rayvon, right at this point in time, looks like he might be a sitting duck, but again, he's just out here hunting for checkered flags, try something a little bit different, see if it works. Doesn't look like in this case it's going to, but yeoman's job for trying.
Well, currently, right now, Rick Rayvon has a key piece behind him there with Joseph Morales, who's been holding up Craig Forsyth, as now the two of them are pretty much covering whatever lane Forsyth wants to run. I saw on the last lap, Forsyth nearly got in the wall driving behind Morales. Morales is actually going to let him go and leave it to the leaders, but that cost him a good little bit right there.
So now, Rick Rayvon going to have to play big-time defense against the pressure tires of Craig Forsyth, and he's going to have to do it for 9 more circuits around this short track. If you're Forsyth, where's a place you're looking to capitalize? Because it looks like even despite the older tires, Rick Rayvon's still able to hook down there on the inside line. So if you're Forsyth, you have to maybe try and make a move on the top side going into a corner, off a corner, or do you rely on the straightaway speed?
Well, it could be he's just going to be doing it right about now. He had a pretty decent run. He has so much more grip in the corners, but
Woo!
gets cut across by Rick Ravon. But Ravon got in the wall a little bit. Forsyth had to check out of it to not get into the wall. Both drivers managing to survive off that.
Forsyth was definitely into the wall as well with the right side of his machine, and a big reason for that, you saw the chop down there by Rick Ravon. He put the dirty air on the nose of the 27, got him super tight, and that 27 car just could not turn off of turn 4. Pretty heavy impact. He'll try again to get up here to Rick Ravon, but now you have to factor in the damage there on that machine as the gap about 0.6 of a second coming to 5 to go.
It's going to be difficult, too, as while he was gaining a lot of lap time, now he hasn't been. He only gained about 1/10 that last time after he lost lap time for 2 laps straight. He's within a half second, but with only 4 laps to go this time by, I don't know if he's going to have enough time. It's going to be really, really close.
Rick Ravon snaking it down the front straightaway, trying to cut the draft for Craig Forsyth, who is closing in. Less than 0.4 of a second now, coming around to 3 to go. And with that bit of a block there by Rick Ravon, taking the air off the nose of Forsyth, you got to wonder if Forsyth gets up to him there again. Is he going to be willing to play ball, or will we maybe see a little bit of contact between the two in the closing stages? Again, nothing really on the line for either of these drivers outside of another trip to victory lane.
Yeah, well, there's no holds bars now. If you're going to get up there, you're going to get up there and make a maneuver. But Forsyth has been slower the last couple laps. He seems to really be suffering after that near wreck between the two of them. He just hasn't had the same pace as he did have earlier as we're on the last lap.
Now half a second back behind Rick Ravon. I don't think he's close enough to be able to make a challenge down here into 3 and 4. Almost got the wall off of turn 2 again. Rick Ravon, the defending champion of the series, the defending winner here at Iowa. He defends his crown here this evening as he will take the final checkered flag of Season 5 of the Dark Horse Racing Series presented by Troy Lee Designs. It is his 4th trip to victory lane, which will tie Craig Forsyth for most wins on the season overall.
Rick Ravon showing why he is a champion once again, pulling off another victory with a strategy call that I nearly thought was not going to work out for him. Could say a little bit of tight racing may have been what gave him the win over Craig Forsyth, but man, that was some good stuff there at the finish.
Just shows what a season Rick Ravon has had. Mentioned limited number of starts, only 6 starts on the season, including tonight, 4 trips to victory lane. And with only 5 starts coming into this race, while most other drivers full-time had 11 starts, he was 9th in the point standings coming into this one. So he is going to finish only running half the season up inside the top 10 in the point standings.
Yeah, it jumped, I believe, Jari Brupacher as well, who was in this race, sadly had his problems with connection early on. I mean, Ravon just came into the season and planted himself right in the middle of the point standings between all these guys who've been running all season, just showing his might and showing that if he were to come back full time again, he could get another championship.
Looks like it's going to be 6th, possibly, that he will finish officially in the point standings here this season. As you mentioned, going to pass Brupacher. I believe he'll also pass Jim Brooks and AJ Hobson, who are not in the field here tonight, as Rick Ravon going to come around here for a victory lap, come back to the start-finish line, and start celebrating here in Iowa. Let's take a look at the finishing results from tonight's season finale. Forsyth in 2nd, Nunez bringing it home in 3rd. Those were really the top 3 of the night. Your winner was going to more than likely be one of these podium drivers. Gil Brooks, great end to the season for him. 4th place. Peterson there in 5th. So he'll finish top 10 in the overall standings. Jeff Heisong will bring it home in 6th. Thought we might see a little bit more out of the 18 car here tonight, especially with his good run last week in the Indy 500, that momentum. But that 6th place run still going to be good enough to more than likely net him 3rd in the overall standings here this season. He should leapfrog Matt Wagner, Joseph Morales, finishing a lap down in 7th. And we mentioned about the connection problems Jari Brupacher had here tonight, but he will finish out the season in the 8th position and should also be finishing top 10 in the overall points here this season as well. Not as many drivers here in the season finale as we expected, but nonetheless, an exciting race overall. Saw pit strategy come into play and had a heck of a move there to defend and keep the race win with Rayvon over Forsyth.
Yeah, heck of a move indeed. I think without that maneuver, Rayvon would have for certain lost that race because Forsyth was coming with a head of speed so much greater that all he needed was the opportunity to get to the inside and it would have been over with. But that maneuver so close to being a wreck is what gave Rick Rayvon the win tonight.
We're going to be in just a few moments talking with our podium finishers as well as the now official Season 5 Dark Horse Racing Series champion, that being Nick DeGroot. So Nick DeGroot continuing to make history in this series as he will now become the first multi-time champion of the series. Of course, with the champion back in Season 2 and follows it up with a championship here in Season 5. Interesting to see how he defends his crown in the 6th season. Looks like we do not, at least for the moment, have the third place driver of our podium finishers, but it's going to be interesting to get the perspective of the top two finishers, especially that battle we saw brewing for the race win. And we'll talk with the guy that's going to be finishing second in the overall standings this season and second in tonight's season finale. Let's talk with the driver of the 27, Craig Forsyth. Hey, Craig, it's Alex and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us? Well, we'll give it another try here. Craig, guys up here in the FRN studios. You got us?
You betcha.
Oh, man, I tell you what, I know you would have loved to finish out the year with another checkered flag, make it 5 on the season. We know that obviously here tonight you were looking to solidify second in the overall standings, which you succeeded in doing so as well, but looked like some cat and mouse strategy there in the closing stages between yourself and the one. Talk about it there. What little more did you need to be able to get around him? Because looked like you almost had a nose to his inside there for a brief moment.
Yeah, I should have turned him. It was the last race. No, I mean, I wasn't going to get caught out like Indy. I wanted tires, and I knew if I didn't take tires, he would take tires, and if I took tires, he wouldn't. So it was going to become a battle of who could catch up to the other better. And based on his pace towards the end, he was catching up to me before that last. I dove in for that last stop. That's why I went in early, just because I didn't want to give him the draft. So that committed me to definitely taking the tires. But I knew he was going to come hard and charge hard on me.
Well, I was curious there at the end because the lap times didn't seem to be there at the finish. I almost thought that you didn't take tires at the end. I'm sorry, I'm getting you confused with Rayvon. My apologies, but jeez, it was a weird race seeing a driver that much faster just suddenly after that incident lose all the pace. What do you think happened to the car that suddenly you lost all the pace to be able to catch Rayvon?
Well, I know I hit the wall at one point, but I think that was after I was starting to lose the pace. So not really too sure, but yeah, it was the last race of the season. So first, second, I'm just glad I'm on the podium, and I'm glad a bunch of the guys were able to show up because we knew it wasn't gonna be that big a night.
Yeah, Craig, obviously, we saw you run part-time back in Season 2. You took a Indy 500 that year. You ran full-time in Season 3, brought it home in 9th, part-time last season, full-time this season. Second place for you, 4 trips to victory lane. I mean, overall, got to be pleased with the effort. So what do we expect for next season? Because, you know, obviously that's got to be some motivation to get that one position better, get that championship trophy, right?
I'd love to say it is, but summer is when I start golfing. So same as Season 2, which I think was also during the summer. I'll be able to make the odd race if the schedules are line up, but unfortunately not full time.
Well, a great job for you here this season. Second place, as we mentioned, in the overall standings. 4 trips to victory lane. I thought here tonight, if you took that checkered flag, you'd break my moniker of calling you Mr. Mile and a Half, but mile and a half seemed to be your forte with getting those checkered flags here this season. Congratulations on the job here tonight and the season overall. And one final time here this season, we're going to hand that mic over to you, let you do some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
I got to thank Jim over at 40 Racewear, and you guys over at FRN, Alex and Seth, and I mean, Eric and Charles run a fun league here at Dark Horse, and had a good season. And I hope everyone else had a good time and had fun watching. And best of luck to everyone.
Exciting season to be sure. That's Craig Forsyth, your runner finisher, here tonight in the season finale at Iowa Speedway. Congratulations once again, Craig.
Thanks, Seth. Stay safe.
All right, let's go down to Victory Lane. 5th trip to Victory Lane, a limited number of starts. The defending champion, Rick Ravon. Let's talk with him now. Hey, Rick, it's Alex and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Yeah, I got you.
I'll tell you what, man. I mean, we talked about the fact that you're defending champion of the series, defending winner of this race. You dominated 125 laps of 150 last season. Here tonight, didn't spend the whole race out in front, but up front when it mattered the most to pick up win number 5 on the season. Bit of a dogfight there at the end, though. Had to defend a hard charge from Craig Forsyth. I mean, talk about that from the cockpit of the Championship 1 car.
That was I don't get very nervous very much in sim racing, but after I figured I had to not take tires and get a little bit of a gap, and I saw how many laps were left, and then I saw him start to reel me in about 1/10 of a second per lap, and some laps it was 0.2 of a second, and I was looking at the lap count. I'm saying, geez, we got 20 to go, and he's 2 seconds behind. Then it was 19, he was 1.9. Then it was 18, he was 1.7, I think, and then so on and so on. And I'm like, he's going to catch me before the end of this thing. I'm going to have to make this thing real wide. And going down into turn 3 there, I saw he was, I was committed to stay on the bottom, and he wasn't quite up there yet. So I took that inside line. And after that, I don't know if he brushed the wall after that or what, but he wasn't reeling me in as quick as he was. With 2 laps to go, I saw he really didn't gain much, and I was starting to breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. But I'll tell you what, Forsyth is a hell of a racer, man. He definitely got me a little bit nervous there because at the rate he was catching me, and he had the fresh tires. So I figured it was over, but I wasn't just going to give it to him.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff happened there at the finish of the race, but we can't forget that this was a fully green flag race, and we saw plenty of pit stops really open up or close the field together. How difficult was it to do the pit stops around this racetrack, seeing you have to enter turn 3 on the apron, ride that to the pit lane, and especially pit exit, where we saw a lot of issues with drivers getting the power down?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was very difficult. It jumped sideways on me, I think, after the first pit stop. And that kind of gave Forsyth a little bit of a lead, about a second. Once you got about a second, or 1.2, I think it was. Once you got that far out in front, you lose the draft, so you can't reel them in. You just got to flat foot it all the way around and hope for the best. And then let me see who was it? Oh yeah, Luis Gonzalez Nunez started fighting with me for second place, and I keyed up and told him we're not going to catch Forsyth if we keep fighting each other. And he said, "Oh, I know." And I came back around him, and I figured he was going to follow me, and then he started to fade a little bit. And then I started reeling in Forsyth, so that gave me some hope. And when he went in early, I knew that the play was to not take tires. So it was a heck of a battle there at the end. I'm just grateful that it all worked out.
Now, when we talked to you last week after winning that Indy 500, I brought up the statistic that you and Nick DeGroot, the only 2 drivers to have won a championship and the Indy 500. I'm going to throw the little caveat out there now, because now we ended up having you last season go to Victory Lane 5 times. We had you go to Victory Lane 5 times this season in a limited number of starts capacity. Nick DeGroot, now officially a 2-time champion. You've got a shot of now being able to tie him for that as well. Do we see you full-time next season trying to run for another championship trophy?
It's possible. I mean, I'm not really setting my mind to it. I'm out here having fun. It's like, I've got a championship. I'm happy with that. I get so competitive that, I get kind of antsy and a little bit anxious and stuff like that. I don't really like when I get like that. I don't like that feeling, but I just want to go out here and have fun and, race with these guys. I still want to win races, of course, but I don't really want to set my mind on another championship. I mean, if it happens, great. I've said it before. I'll say it again. In this league, with the talent in this league, to win races is a great feeling, but to win a championship is phenomenal. But yeah, I'll be back next season. But really, with the mindset of just to have fun and win races. And hey, look, if I'm in contention, great. If not, I'm still going to have fun with these guys.
Well, having fun for sure, and picking up win number 4 on the year. Rick Ravon going to finish out the season 6th in the overall standings as well. Congratulations on a job well done here.
Thank you.
On the home stretch, Rick, and you know the drill. You've been up here with us numerous times. We're going to give you the opportunity now for some season-ending victory lane thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Seth, Alex, thank you guys for calling the race tonight. Thanks to FRN for covering our seasons. You guys do a fantastic job. Thanks to the drivers that showed up tonight, by the way. It was a little disappointing that we had such a small field. It's really a damn shame. Because this is a great league, and even though it's the last race of the season and the championship's been decided, I don't know what everybody's got going on, but I didn't even know we were racing tonight. Actually, I looked at the schedule, and Iowa wasn't on the schedule, but apparently there was a makeup race. So I found out last minute. I jumped in with about 10 minutes left in practice, but I don't know what the other guys. But it was a little disappointing to see such a low turnout for such a great league. Thanks to Eric Peterson and Charles Teed, for putting Dark Horse together. Thanks to Jay-Z, my main man Jay-Z. Thanks for tuning in and cheering me on and supporting me. And thanks to my wife Alana, I love you, sweetheart. Thanks to my my 2 daughters, Zoe, Mila. You guys are the best. I love you to death. Thank you, Lord Jesus, of course, for giving me life. And just thanks to everybody who tuned in. Thanks to the support. This is fantastic, and looking forward to next season. Can't wait.
Well, what a way to end out the season for Rick Ravon. 4th trip to victory lane, and tonight, 2nd trip to victory lane here in his career at Iowa Speedway. Congratulations once again, Rick, and best of luck next season.
Thank you so much, Seth. Thank you.
We are momentarily going to be talking with our official champion, but we actually do now have our 3rd place finisher, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, on standby. So let's talk with him now. Hey, Luis, it's Alex and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
I got you.
Man, a great run for you here tonight to close out the season. It's great to see you back on the racetrack as well. Looked like everybody here tonight, with it just being a checkered flag on the line, everybody playing different strategy. You looked like one of those guys that was off sequence, being one of the first to pit road. So talk about that decision to try. Was that to try and get fresher tires and leapfrog everybody, or was it basically working the race from backwards to forwards?
Just try to don't hit somebody. I have bad experience to coming with somebody in and always happen something. So I just guessing to coming for the apron and just coming like for the apron turn 3 to coming on 4. But just basically thinking about maybe I'm gonna come in first because I don't wanna see nobody on the front. Doesn't matter if it's the field is very short today, like a 7 or 8 cars today, but doesn't matter. Just I want to just not coming with nobody. And yeah, so just basically that, and try to maybe to come in more faster on the end, but it's really I'm really surprised about what he did, Craig, and also Rick too. So
I'm curious tonight. We've seen a lot of domination from some of the best drivers in this league so far this season. You got your Ravon, you got your Forsyth, you got your Wagner, all these guys winning all the races so far this season, and of course DeGroot, the champion. But you tonight looked like a driver that could have changed the grain and taken the victory. I mean, how did you feel about your chances going in the race tonight?
I thought I can win the race today. I thought maybe. Like in the moment I say, oh, maybe I can win something today. Should be the last one. Who knows? And when I saw the car 10 laps to go to the end, it's like, oh my God, this is really difficult to come living on the track. So when I saw Rick very faster, and I know about Craig, I don't know how about the speed stop is super fast to do, and especially in nano leagues. I thought today is gonna be top 3. That's it. So, and when I left Rick Raybon to catch, because I said, okay, maybe Raybon is more faster than me, so he can catch Craig to the end and get some fun on the end. But when he started to leave me on the back, it's like, I guess I'm gonna save it the top 3 and that's it. So really, it's really tough. Almost win something on New Hampshire. Basically, it was my mistake to thinking about maybe the guys can leave me the pace to me. And same for remember Michigan, the big one. But next season I will be here. I would like to be here. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the Indy 500 because I have a job at that time. But I will be next season over here, so I would like to fight it with Rick Raybon. He's a very nice guy. I saw in the Indy Fixed long time ago, so he's a very strong guy. And get more experience because I come here to don't leave window like doing nothing. So I come here to say, okay, I'm gonna practice for something special. So it's helped me a lot. So I really appreciate it to found this, especially Eric, and to allow me to be here. So I'm really happy because I have things to another place to get more strong. So I really thank you to be allowed over here. So I'm really happy. But what I said, no, next season I'm gonna be here again. So let's see if we can try to win something. My purpose is win something and finish something in the better way.
We've seen a number of drivers make their first starts of their career here this season, you amongst them, and putting on a heck of a show every single week. 4 top 5s on the season, a pole position as well. You finished 10th in the overall standings, so really looking forward to seeing with what you learned this season, what you can apply into next season, and maybe we'll see you up there hunting for that championship trophy. But Luis, now we're going to give you the opportunity to do some thank yous, some shout outs, and sponsors.
So I don't want to say thank you, my mom, because my mom was watching me over there because I didn't stay here today when I racing. So just I figured out the last minute and the last second to there. I want to say thank you to Sim Racing 24/7 for support me. Darren, he support me over there with everything. So thank you so much for them. I want to say thank you for my wife. She give me the opportunity to be here to tell me, okay, you're gonna run today. I say no, but I liar, so I come here. I run it. Was faster the race, but anyways. So I want to say thank you for her to be like that and allowed me to be here. So thank you guys, you for streaming, for the broadcasting, and also for Matt Warner, Eric, and all the admin to the Dark Horse. And let's see next season to be more strong. Congrats to Rick, Craig, and also Nick the Group for the championship. And let's see next season if it's gonna be better than this one.
Well, we're looking forward to it. What a way to end off his first full-time season here with the Dark Horse Racing Series. 3rd place here tonight at Iowa. Congratulations once again, Luis, and best of luck next year.
Thank you so much, and I apologize. I'm really sorry about that. You know what about.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez, your final driver on the podium. And now it's time to talk to another driver who wasn't in the race here tonight, but he's going to get to hoist a championship trophy down there in the Victory Lane vicinity. We've got the driver, the multi-time champion and your Season 5 champion of the Dark Horse Racing Series on standby, Nick DeGroot. Nick, it's Alex and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys.
All right, so we can't confirm or deny, but we have a report of someone that looks like you sitting on a lawn chair on top of a hauler with an iced tea during this race in the infield, watching these guys try and get that final checkered flag. Came into this race already knowing you had the championship locked up. The great run in that final double points race last week at Indianapolis. I mean, obviously, that pressure was off of you. But what does it mean now to be a two-time champion in a series as competitive as this?
Yeah, first of all, I would have loved to have run this race, won the championship out there on the track and been able to do burnouts. Better than ending in the fence in Indy like I did last week. But yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't make it. And fortunately, we had a big enough points lead that ended up not mattering. But yeah, to win 2 championships, I mean, I've been close to getting that second one, battling against people like Rick and Rob Malechka and Alex and Henry Bennett, some really great racers, and just coming up short each time. So this season to come here and just really rattle off a bunch of really consistent finishes and kind of stack the points up and not even have to worry about it in the end, that was a nice change from previous season. So yeah, 2-time champion Dark Horse is a great achievement for me, and love that it came on the heels of my first Area 51 title as well. So we got them both this season, which is just really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm curious for you. After Indy, you're sitting here as the champion confirmed. What did this race even mean to you, despite not making it, of course? What would have meant to you to run this and possibly get another win on this season and try and solidify your standing as an all-time great?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a bit of a completionist, so I really wanted to run the last race. I hate skipping races, even in leagues that have drop weeks, and yeah, it would have been nice to go out there, put an exclamation point on it, and get the win. But yeah, I don't know. That would have been tough competition. With Luis, Rick, and Craig. They're really hauling the mail. So I probably wouldn't even ended up winning anyway. Those guys are real good at these short ovals. So yeah, it's unfortunate I couldn't be there, but it was still fun to be able to watch one of these things for once. I'm not used to doing that. So yeah, it was a good broadcast and a great race.
We've had the opportunity here at FRN to be able to cover this series all the way back from season 2 to now the current season, and we start to see as each season progresses, the new talent comes in, the level of competition just continues to ratchet up. If we go back to your season 2 championship, 5 trips to victory lane, this season you only found 2 checkered flags, but has the mentality for you now kind of shifted from being a dominant driver out there getting win after win and now shifted to just being a consistent driver, and that's how the championship is won now?
Yeah, that's a very good point. In those seasons, actually, where I lost out, I was really going for wins whenever I could. I think a big one was a season opener at Fontana where I was running second in the last corner, and I was pushing to get the win from Wagner, and I spun myself out. I ended up like 28th, and that's a boatload of points just gone in an instant. So this season we took a new approach, and both in Dark Horse and Area 51, there was guys that had more wins than me. So yeah, we came in here. Wins are nice, but we wanted to get the points. It was always about the points. There was even since I started in the back willingly to get those 5 bonus points for gaining the most positions. So yeah, different mindset, less wins, but 2 championships. I'll take it.
Absolutely. Those championship trophies are what everybody's going for at the end of the year. And as mentioned, you've got 2 of them you're able to display. And who knows, maybe next year we'll be able to see you be able to get the trifecta of championship trophies. Going to be looking forward to seeing how you defend the championship title in the upcoming season 6. But Nick, congratulations on winning the championship. A great year for you. And now we're going to give you that opportunity for some championship. Thank you, sponsors and shoutouts.
Yeah, I hope I'm going to be able to defend that title. First of all, depending on when this next season is, I may actually not be able to run full time. So we'll see how that plays out. But either way, you're going to see me again, I'm sure, because I love running these races. I love running with these guys. And yeah, thank you for one last time this season. Factory Back Motorsports, motorsport.com, CoveyMoore.com, DeGroot Automotive, U-Haul and Detailing, Blaze Pods, Wegmans, of course, Cowboy Shit, everybody else who supports us. Awesome, bring home the championship. Wish I could have done it on the track, but still feels good.
That is Nick DeGroot. He is your Season 5 Dark Horse Racing Series champion. Congratulations once again, Nick, and best of luck next season. Hopefully we will get to see you out there full-time trying to defend that championship trophy.
Yeah, thank you guys, and thank you for all you do every season. It's really cool.
So as Nick DeGroot continues to celebrate his championship of the season, Rick Ravon continues to celebrate his victory to close out the year. In the past 3 seasons, our championship battle has been determined at Indianapolis. Obviously, this year having the makeup race at Iowa, but the championship was pretty much already decided after Indy, so kind of seems appropriate that followed the same line as previous seasons. But here tonight, it was kind of a little bit of an interesting race with the fact that drivers didn't have to come into this one worrying about points. They really didn't even have to worry about how they finished out the season in the point standings. There was just one goal and one goal only, and that was get that final checkered flag of the season. And between Rayvon, Forsyth, and Nunez, we saw a plethora of strategies, and all three of them looked like they had a legit shot to snag this checkered flag at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, there was a good number of drivers in this race where I could have easily said that, yeah, they're about to win this race. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, the drivers who've been strong all year were the drivers to come out and show that there's a reason why they've won so many races.
I mentioned the fact, when we were talking with Nunez, a number of drivers here this season making their first full-time starts, their first full-time seasons. You look at him, you look at Yari Brupacher, Joseph Morales. These are drivers that we hadn't seen prior to this season. We know that Rick Rayvon is still considering, not exactly putting himself in tough situations. He obviously wants to go for another championship. There's a big question mark for Nick DeGroot. We've heard that with the summer coming on, we more than likely won't see two-time championship runner-up Craig Forsyth. So it's almost looking like now we might be looking at some of this younger talent that's now come into the league. And are these some of the front runners we can expect to see in the upcoming 6th season with the championship on the line?
Well, we won't get to know until we see it next season, will we? Will these guys be able to keep up and be able to keep their hold on this league?
It's going to be a lot of fun to see how that storyline progresses, but the final chapter of this story has been written tonight. Nick DeGroot, the champion, Rick Rayvon, the winner here at Iowa. And Season 5 of the Dark Horse Racing Series, presented by Troy Lee Designs, has officially come to a close. We appreciate all of you joining us here for the season finale and for the entirety of this season. We hope you guys have enjoyed our coverage of it here on the Flatout Racing Network. Alex, been a great season finale here tonight at the short track known as Iowa. I appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Appreciate working with you, Seth. This league's always fun.
Absolutely. Once again, thank you to all of you for joining us here on your Wednesday night. Enjoy the rest of your evening and be sure to join us for the 6th season of the Dark Horse Racing Series here on the Flatout Racing Network. Until next time, for Alex Kolinix, I'm Seth Cole. We'll see you guys on our next broadcast here on FRN.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.